January 3rd, 1954, Princeton, New Jersey. A renowned physicist, his face etched with the wisdom and weariness of age, sits at his desk. His iconic, untamed white hair seems to defy gravity itself. His hands, once instruments of scientific revelation, tremble slightly as he begins to write, but this time, it's not equations filling the page. It's not a new theory of relativity. This is something altogether different, something far more dangerous. A confession, a profound meditation on death, on what, if anything, lies beyond, on whether our lives hold any lasting significance in the grand cosmic scheme. This letter, a deeply personal reflection, would remain hidden from the world for over 50 years. The Gutkind family. They were the gatekeepers of this secret. They understood the explosive potential of its contents, the seismic shift it could cause if unleashed upon public opinion. For decades, only a handful of individuals even knew of its existence. Then, in 2008, it surfaced, appearing at auction for the very first time. Bloomsbury Auctions in London. It sold for a staggering $404,000, an astonishing sum for a single letter. But that was only the prelude. 10 years later, in December of 2018, Christie's auction house placed it on the auction block once more. The atmosphere in the room was palpable, thick with anticipation. Two anonymous bidders, their identities shielded by telephones, engaged in a fierce battle, a 4-minute tug-of-war fueled by an insatiable desire. When the gavel finally fell, the winning bid was a mind-boggling $2,892,500, nearly $3 million, for a single page and a half of handwritten German text. But why? Why would anyone be willing to pay such an exorbitant price for a letter? The answer lies in what Albert Einstein revealed within its lines, in what he finally admitted about God, about death, about whether any of our cherished beliefs concerning the afterlife have any basis in reality. The auction house itself boldly proclaimed it as one of the definitive statements in the ongoing debate between religion and science. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that letter said. But first, you need to understand something crucial. What you're about to hear stands in stark contrast to almost everything you have been taught about Albert Einstein. For decades, institutions have carefully curated and controlled his public image, portraying him as the friendly genius, the absent-minded professor, the man who, through science, somehow proved the existence of God. That image, however, is incomplete, at best, a deliberate distortion, at worst. Here is what really happened. In late 1953, Albert Einstein received a book from a philosopher named Erich Gutkind. The book was titled, "Choose Life, the Biblical Call to Revolt." Gutkind's aim was to reconcile Jewish spirituality with the principles of modern science. He posited that the Bible contained hidden, profound truths that aligned perfectly with the laws of physics. He sent the book to Albert Einstein, hoping to secure an endorsement from the scientific titan. What he received in return would ultimately send shockwaves through the world. Albert Einstein read the book, and he did not like it. But more than that, it provoked him. It stirred something deep within. It forced him to articulate in stark, unambiguous terms what he had carefully, meticulously avoided stating publicly throughout his entire career. His true beliefs about God, his true beliefs about death, his true beliefs about whether your spirit, your soul, survives when your body ceases to function, when your heart stops beating. On January 3rd, 1954, Albert Einstein sat down and penned his response. He wrote it in German, his native tongue. He wrote it swiftly, passionately, holding nothing back. This was a private letter, never intended for publication, never meant to be scrutinized by historians. Just one man being brutally, unapologetically honest with another. Here is what he wrote. "The word God is for me nothing more than the expression and product of human weaknesses." Read that again. Digest its implications. The greatest scientific mind of the 20th century. The man who unraveled the very fabric of the universe. He called God the product of human weakness, but Albert Einstein was not finished. "The Bible," he continued, "is a collection of honorable but still primitive legends, which are nevertheless pretty childish." The Bible, childish, primitive, coming from the man whose theories revealed how space itself bends and time expands. And then he went further. "For me, the Jewish faith, like all other religions, is an incarnation of the most childish superstitions. All religions, not just one, all of them, childish superstitions. This, from a man who was raised in a Jewish household, a man who identified as culturally Jewish throughout his entire life. Now, you might be thinking, you have heard this before. You might assume that Albert Einstein was an atheist, but here is where things become complex, where the truth takes on a dimension far stranger than simple disbelief, because Albert Einstein was not an atheist. He stated this himself repeatedly, in interviews, in personal letters, in public pronouncements. He explicitly rejected the label of atheist. So, what was he? He called himself a deeply religious non-believer. Think about that phrase for a moment. Deeply religious, non-believer. Those words seem inherently contradictory. How can someone be deeply religious while simultaneously lacking belief? Albert Einstein explained it this way. He stated that he believed in Spinoza's God. Baruch Spinoza was a 17th century philosopher who was excommunicated from his own Jewish community for his radical, groundbreaking, and ultimately heretical ideas. In 1656, at just 23 years old, the Amsterdam synagogue issued a cherem against him, a complete and utter excommunication. They forbade anyone from speaking to him, conducting business with him, or even approaching within 4 cubits of him. His own family was forbidden from seeing him, all because of his revolutionary beliefs about God. Spinoza did not believe in a personal God who actively watches over humanity, who listens to prayers and intervenes in human affairs, who rewards the virtuous and punishes the wicked. Instead, Spinoza believed that God and nature were fundamentally the same thing. Deus sive natura, he wrote in Latin. God or nature. They were simply 2 different names for the same underlying reality. God was not separate from the universe. God was the universe, every atom, every star, every fleeting thought that crosses your mind. All of it together was what Spinoza termed God. For 3 centuries following his death, Spinoza was vilified. He was branded an atheist, a heretic, a danger to the very fabric of civilization. Religious authorities across Europe condemned his writings. And then, Albert Einstein came along and proclaimed, "I believe in Spinoza's God." Albert Einstein embraced this concept wholeheartedly. "I believe in Spinoza's God," he declared, "who reveals himself in the lawful harmony of all that exists." This is absolutely crucial to understanding Albert Einstein's perspective. He was not rejecting the notion of something greater than ourselves. He was rejecting the anthropomorphic, the childish version, the bearded man sitting on a throne in the clouds, the cosmic judge meticulously keeping score of our deeds, the God who capriciously picks favorites, answers prayers only for some, and condemns others to eternal damnation. That God, Albert Einstein asserted, was a human invention, a projection of our deepest fears and most fervent hopes onto the vast canvas of the universe. But the universe itself, its breathtaking scale, the mathematical elegance that underlies all of reality, the utterly inexplicable fact that nature consistently obeys laws that human minds can somehow discover and comprehend. That, Albert Einstein said, filled him with awe. That was his religion, cosmic religion, he termed it. So now we are faced with a perplexing puzzle. Albert Einstein rejected the concept of a personal God. He rejected traditional, organized religion. He called the Bible primitive and childish, but he also unequivocally described himself as deeply religious. He experienced profound awe when contemplating the universe. He fervently believed in something he called Spinoza's God. So, where does death fit into this intricate, complex picture? Here is where the 1954 letter becomes truly shocking, because Albert Einstein did not simply stop at criticizing religion. He went further, much, much further. January 3rd, 1954, Princeton, New Jersey. A brilliant mind, weathered by time, sits hunched over a mahogany desk. White hair, a chaotic halo, hands that once danced across equations now tremble as they hold a pen. This isn't about splitting atoms or bending light. This is about something far more profound and potentially unsettling. A confession, a reckoning with mortality itself. What happens when we breathe our last? What, if anything, awaits us? And does any of it truly matter? This letter, a single unassuming piece of paper, remained locked away, a closely guarded secret for over half a century. The Gutkind family, they understood its power, its potential to ignite debate, to challenge deeply held beliefs. For decades, it was a whispered rumor, a ghost in the archives. In that letter, and in other writings around the same time, Albert Einstein made his position on death absolutely clear. "I do not believe in immortality of the individual," he wrote. "Let that sink in. The man who proved that energy cannot be destroyed, the man who showed that matter and energy are the same thing, that very man, Albert Einstein, said he did not believe your individual consciousness survives death." And then he added a phrase that haunts me to this day. "One life is enough for me. One life, that is all. When you die, you are gone. No heaven, no reincarnation, no reuniting with loved ones in some eternal realm. Just ending." Some people have called this bleak, nihilistic, depressing. But Albert Einstein did not see it that way. He saw people who believed in personal immortality as, and I quote his exact words, "feeble souls who harbor such thoughts through fear or ridiculous egotisms." Harsh words, but Albert Einstein meant them. He thought the desire for personal immortality was a sign of weakness, an inability to accept reality, a childish wish to live forever because we cannot face the truth of our own ending. Now, if you are religious, this might be difficult to hear. If you find comfort in believing you will see your deceased loved ones again, Albert Einstein just called that comfort the product of feeble souls. But wait, because here is where everything changes. In March of 1955, just 2 months before Albert Einstein himself would die, something happened that forced him to confront death not as an abstract concept, but as an immediate reality. His closest friend died. Mike Peterson had known Albert Einstein for over 50 years. They met as young men in Zurich. Peterson was an engineer. Albert Einstein was a struggling physics student. They became inseparable. When Albert Einstein was developing his theory of special relativity in 1905, it was Peterson he talked to. Peterson he bounced ideas off. Peterson he credited in his famous paper. Albert Einstein called Peterson the best sounding board in Europe for scientific ideas. For half a century, these two men shared everything: their hopes, their fears, their deepest thoughts about the nature of reality. On March 15, 1955, Mike Peterson died. Albert Einstein was devastated. But what he wrote to the Peterson family 6 days later would become one of the most analyzed and debated statements he ever made. Listen carefully to these words. Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That signifies nothing. For those of us who believe in physics, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Read that again. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. This is Albert Einstein, the man who just a year earlier wrote that he does not believe in individual immortality. The man who said, "One life is enough for me." The man who called belief in the beyond the province of feeble souls. Now he is saying that the past has not really passed, that the future has not really yet to come, that his dead friend Mike Peterson still exists somewhere in the fabric of space-time. What changed? The answer lies in Albert Einstein's own physics, in the theory of relativity itself. You see, one of the strangest implications of relativity is something physicists call the block universe. According to this view, time does not flow. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. The universe is like a frozen four-dimensional block where every moment that ever was, or ever will be, exists eternally. In a block universe, the moment of your birth still exists, the moment of your death already exists, and every moment in between exists all at once. From our limited perspective inside the block, we experience time as flowing. We feel like we are moving from past to future, but from outside the block, from a God's eye view, there is no movement, there is no flow, everything just is. Albert Einstein understood this better than anyone. He helped create the mathematics that describe it, and in his moment of grief, facing the death of his closest friend, he reached for this truth. Mike Peterson was not gone, not really. In the eternal structure of space-time, Peterson still exists. Every conversation they ever had still exists. Every laugh they shared still exists. Every moment of their 50-year friendship is preserved forever in the fabric of reality. That is what Albert Einstein meant. But here is the question that should keep you up at night. Did Albert Einstein actually believe this? Or was he just comforting a grieving family? Some scholars argue it was mere rhetoric, words of solace with no scientific weight. They point out that Albert Einstein wrote this in a condolence letter, not in a physics paper. He was trying to ease pain, not make a cosmological claim. But I am not so sure. Because Albert Einstein did not have to say it that way. He could have written something generic, something about Peterson living on in memory, something about the good times they shared. That would have been normal, expected, safe. Instead, Albert Einstein chose to invoke his own theory of physics. He specifically mentioned those of us who believe in physics. He made a claim about the fundamental nature of time and reality. In his moment of grief, facing his own mortality just weeks before his own death, Albert Einstein reached for the deepest truth he knew. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. 1 month and 3 days after writing those words, Albert Einstein died. Think about that timing. 1 month, in the final weeks of his life, facing his own mortality. Albert Einstein chose to write about the illusion of time, about the eternal nature of existence, about how death means nothing to those who understand physics. Was this coincidence? Or did Albert Einstein sense that his own end was approaching? His health had been declining for years. He knew about the aneurysm in his abdomen. Doctors had warned him it could rupture at any time. He lived every day knowing that death could come without warning. And yet, he continued working, continued writing letters, continued searching for the unified field theory that would tie all of physics together. In his final days, He was working on a speech to celebrate Israel's 7th anniversary. He was scribbling equations on his hospital bed, never stopping, never giving up, because he understood something about time that most people never grasp. On April 18, 1955, an abdominal aortic aneurysm ruptured inside him. He was taken to Princeton Hospital. The doctors told him surgery could save his life. He refused. "I want to go when I want," he said. "It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly." Those were among his final words in English. His very last words were in German. He spoke them to a nurse named Alice Roth. She did not understand German. No one recorded what he said. Albert Einstein's final message to the world was lost. But perhaps it doesn't matter. Perhaps Albert Einstein had already said everything that needed to be said. In the 1954 letter, he told us God is a human invention. Religion is childish superstition. There is no personal immortality. One life is enough. In the 1955 letter, he told us something stranger. Past, present, and future are illusions. His dead friend still exists. And by implication, all of us will continue to exist, frozen in space-time, long after our bodies stop moving. These two positions seem to contradict each other, and yet Albert Einstein held both of them. The same brilliant mind that rejected heaven and hell also understood that death might not mean what we think it means. Here is what I believe Albert Einstein was trying to tell us. The traditional religious view of death is wrong. There is no personal God waiting to judge you. No paradise for the good and damnation for the wicked. No reunion with deceased relatives in some otherworldly realm. Those are stories we tell ourselves because we are afraid. But the materialist view of death is also incomplete. You are not just a biological machine that stops working. You are not a candle flame that simply goes out. You are a pattern of matter and energy, woven into the fabric of space-time. And that pattern does not disappear when your heart stops beating. It cannot disappear. Because in the block universe, everything that ever existed continues to exist. You are eternal. Not because God made you that way, not because you have a spirit that floats away to the beyond, but because the mathematics of the universe demand it, because physics says so. Albert Einstein understood something that most people, religious and atheist alike, have missed entirely. Death is not what we think. You were not born, and you will not die. Not in the way you imagine. Those are just perspectives from inside the block. From outside the block, from the view of the universe itself. You simply are. You always were. You always will be. Every moment of your life is preserved. Every laugh, every tear, every breath, every heartbeat, all of it, frozen in the eternal structure of reality. All of it, existing right now, even as you listen to these words. Does this comfort you? Or terrify you? Albert Einstein called it an illusion, that we experience time as flowing. But illusions feel real to those experiencing them. Your fear of death feels real. Your grief for lost loved ones feels real. Your hope to see them again feels real. Perhaps that is the deepest truth of all. We live inside the illusion. We cannot escape it while we are alive. We feel time flowing. We feel ourselves aging. We feel death approaching. And no amount of understanding block universe physics can make that feeling go away. But maybe knowing helps. Maybe understanding that your existence is mathematically eternal, even if your experience of it is temporary, provides some comfort. Maybe Albert Einstein knew this when he wrote to the Besso family. Maybe that is why he chose those particular words. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Stubborn, persistent, but still, in the end, only an illusion. Albert Einstein's 1954 letter sold at auction in 2018 for nearly $3 million. An anonymous buyer paid that fortune just to own the pages where Albert Einstein wrote that God is human weakness and the Bible is childish legends. But I wonder if that buyer understood the full picture. I wonder if they knew about the 1955 letter, about the block universe, about what Albert Einstein really believed regarding death and eternity. Because the 1954 letter is only half the story. The whole story is far more strange, far more beautiful, and far more hopeful than either believers or atheists want to admit. Albert Einstein rejected God, but he found something else, something he could barely put into words, the lawful harmony of all that exists, the cosmic religious feeling, the eternal structure of space-time, where nothing that exists can ever cease to exist. That is not religion in any traditional sense, but it is not cold materialist atheism either. It is something new, something Albert Einstein glimpsed but never fully articulated. And perhaps it is the closest thing to truth any of us will ever find. Before I continue, I want to say something to you. You have stayed with me through difficult ideas, through concepts that challenge everything you might believe about God and death, and what happens when we die. That takes courage. That takes a genuine desire to understand truth, even when truth is uncomfortable. This channel exists because people like you exist, people who are not satisfied with easy answers, people who want to dig deeper, people who, like Albert Einstein, would rather face a difficult truth than embrace a comfortable lie. When you support this channel through super thanks, you are not just giving money. You are saying that this kind of content matters, that exploring the deepest questions of existence matters, that the search for truth matters. Albert Einstein spent his entire life asking questions that others were afraid to ask. He paid a price for that. He was called an atheist by religious people and too mystical by scientists. He did not fit neatly into any category. Neither do you. If these ideas resonate with you, if you want to see more content exploring what the greatest minds discovered about life, death, and reality, consider clicking the thanks button below. Every contribution helps this channel continue. Every contribution says that truth matters. Now let me tell you what Albert Einstein's 2 letters, taken together, really mean for your life. You are going to die. There is no escaping that. Albert Einstein knew it. He accepted it. He even welcomed it when his time came. I will do it elegantly, he said. But death is not what you think. In the block universe that Albert Einstein helped discover, your death is not an ending. It is a boundary. On one side of that boundary, you exist as a living, breathing, experiencing being. On the other side, you exist as a pattern in space-time, unfrozen but real, eternal but unchanging. Both sides are you. Both sides are equally real. The boundary we call death is just a line we cross, not an erasure of everything we were. Your grandmother, who passed away years ago, still exists in the block universe. She's having Sunday dinner right now. She's laughing at a joke right now. She's holding you as a baby right now. All of those moments are equally real, equally present, equally eternal. This is not faith, this is physics. This is what Albert Einstein's own theories suggest about the nature of time and existence. Does it change how you live? It should. If every moment of your life is eternal, then every moment matters. That argument you had with your spouse exists forever. That kindness you showed a stranger exists forever. That moment of joy you shared with your child exists forever. You are not just passing through existence. January 3rd, 1954, Princeton, New Jersey. A brilliant mind, weathered by time, sits hunched over a mahogany desk, white hair, a chaotic halo, hands that once danced across equations, now tremble as they hold a pen. This isn't about splitting atoms or bending light. This is about something far more profound and potentially unsettling. A confession, a reckoning with mortality itself. What happens when we breathe our last? What, if anything, awaits us beyond, and does any of it truly matter? This letter, a single unassuming piece of paper, remained locked away, a closely guarded secret for over half a century. The Gutkind family. They understood its power, its potential to ignite debate, to challenge deeply held beliefs. For decades it was a whispered rumor, a ghost in the archives. You are carving yourself into the fabric of reality. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every thought you think. Albert Einstein understood this. That is why, despite rejecting traditional religion, he devoted his life to understanding the universe. Every insight he gained became part of the eternal structure. Every equation he wrote exists forever in the block universe. And your life, though you may not discover relativity or write famous letters, is equally eternal, equally preserved, equally real. One life is enough. Albert Einstein said, maybe now you understand why. One life, preserved forever in the mathematics of space-time. One life that never truly ends, because it never truly began. One life that simply is. Albert Einstein's 1954 letter shocked the religious establishment. His 1955 letter puzzled philosophers. Together, they form a picture of reality that neither religion nor atheism has fully grasped. God, as traditionally conceived, does not exist. Death, as traditionally conceived, does not exist either. What exists is something stranger, something Albert Einstein spent his whole life trying to understand, something he glimpsed in his equations and expressed in his letters. The eternal now, the block universe, the stubbornly persistent illusion of time. You are part of that. You always were. You always will be. Not because God made you eternal, but because the universe is built that way, because physics demands it, because reality, at its deepest level, does not destroy, it only changes perspective. Albert Einstein died alone in a hospital room in Princeton. His last words were lost because no one who spoke German was there to hear them. But I like to imagine what he might have said. Perhaps he said something about Baruch Spinoza, about the God he actually believed in, the lawful harmony of all that exists, Deus sive natura. Perhaps he said something about Michel Besso, about seeing his friend again in the eternal structure of space-time. Perhaps he said something about physics, about the beautiful equations that revealed the true nature of reality. Or perhaps he said nothing at all. Perhaps in that final moment, Albert Einstein simply smiled, because he knew something that the rest of us are only beginning to understand. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. And in that illusion, we live, we love, we fear, we hope. But outside the illusion, in the eternal mathematics of reality, we simply are forever. Now I want to hear from you. Albert Einstein believed God is human weakness, but he also believed that time is an illusion and that his dead friend still exists. Which Albert Einstein do you believe? The skeptic who rejected religion, or the physicist who found eternity in equations? Comment skeptic or eternal below. And tell me honestly, after everything you have heard today, are you more afraid of death or less afraid? I read every comment in the first 2 hours, and I will respond to yours.